Okay, so today I'm going to have a look at my Commodore 1541 floppy drive. I just want to check that it's safe to use before I plug it into the Commodore 64. It has a mod on it. It's on-off switch, which I'm pretty sure is just a power switch connected to power switch at the back. But I'm not 100% sure. I just want to confirm that. And I just want to make sure that nothing looks broken, no obviously corroding capacitors or anything else like that inside of it. And if it looks good, we'll give it a try. Okay, so just having a quick look on the bottom to see how to get in. We see there are these 4 holes. One's underneath a sort of a warranty sticker. Looks like they're just Phillips screws down there, so let me just grab a tool and get inside. Okay, screwdriver. So let's have a look. Let's just get this sticker off. Doesn't look like an original warranty sticker or anything, so I'm not quite sure what this sticker is or why it's on here. I don't see any sort of Commodore logos or anything on it. If it was, I might try and sort of keep it, but try and glue that back on. I mean, it's clearly been opened before, so definitely it doesn't have its original warranty seals. And of course the warranty's 20 to 30 to 40 years out of date, so let's see if some screws come out. Or if they are captive. Maybe I haven't got them completely out. Let's give them a bit more of a screw. This thing's very large, bulky, and heavy. Okay, it feels like it's... Oh, there we go, they do come out. Just haven't unscrewed them enough. There we go. There we go. That was more work than I thought it was going to be, as usual. Let's have a look inside. Yeah, cool. Okay, what do we got? Capacitors, electrolytics. They don't look like anything's clearly bulging or leaking. Looks okay. But it doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty clean overall. You'll see this switch runs all the way to the back. I might just take this board off and just check underneath to make sure that there's nothing leaking out the bottom for any of those capacitors. The board's got a 1982 date on it. Copyright. If I see a separate manufacturing date, so I assume that's correct. I missed a screw somewhere. Oh, there. Right in front of me. Right, here we go. So these voltage regulators for the power supply. I think, maybe wrong, but they are connected to this heatsink, which connects to this plate here. So remove. There we go. That's coming off. Now Just some old plugs. Don't want to take it all the way off necessarily. I want to get a look at the bottom. A few bodge wires here. I'm not sure if those are original or aftermarket. I don't know enough about this board. Doesn't look too bad. Looks okay to me. The drive itself visually looks okay. I don't see any rust or anything inside it, which is good. I won't work the mechanism. If it has any issues, I might lubricate it, but that will be about it. Okay, and yeah, so I can see very clearly. Let me just put this down carefully. I can see very clearly that that red cable from the switch is running all the way back to the power switch on the back of the device. So it is just a power switch at the front for convenience. Power connections all look good. Everything looks fine as far as I can tell. Transformer looks okay. Cool, alright, I'll put this back together and I think I will test it out. Okay, so before I actually plug this into the Commodore 64, I do want to plug it into the power and just see if it turns on at all. So I've got here standard power cable, just, you know, standard 3-prong kettle cable. So plug that in, just make sure it's on off and that the front is off. Okay, so it's plugged in. Got it plugged into the power point. Now I'm just going to hit the switch and see what happens. That's a good sign. Now the switch on the front, however, I think maybe labelled backwards. Yeah. Or it does nothing, I'm not quite sure. Ah, I see what's happened. Okay, so this is wired up so that if this is on, the switch on the front doesn't do anything. If this is off, the switch on the front becomes the power switch. So let me just turn this around so you can see. Okay, so if I switch this on, we see the green light comes on, the red light came on briefly. I could hear the drive seeking. It doesn't come through so well on the video, but there was a small sound of the drive head seeking the first few times I switched this on. That did stop happening though, and that's going to come up later. Okay, cool. So it doesn't blow up. Let's plug it in and see what happens. Just a quick disclaimer, I have never used a Commodore 64 disk drive before, and I elected not to read the manual first, so a few things I do here are a bit silly. I'll point out in some overlay text as the video goes on where those things are. Okay, so we're going to test out the drive in the Commodore 64. See, we have the Commodore 64 plugged in, running on the TV. We have the drive set up, it's all plugged in and ready to go. Let's switch it on and just see what happens. Okay, so it's lit up. Let's try. Now, I'm not expecting anything to happen necessarily. Yep, cool, file not found. Okay, what if I'll put a disk in? Now there's nothing on this disk, but I want to see if it seeks. Hear something. It's very quiet, but I could definitely hear some motion. So let's try something. Let's try the world. Go to 10. Cool. I'll clear that. Okay. Let's try saving this to the disk. Hello W. We've got the red light flashing. That's a good sign. Still flashing. So basically, no matter what I did, I couldn't get any activity or consistent activity out of the drive motor. I did hear it a few times early on, but then it just sort of stopped. So I'm not sure if it was just on the brink of failing and failed just through some light use or not, but I needed to do a bit more investigation to figure out what might be stopping the motor from being able to operate. Time for a research break. Alright, I did some Googling and I found a few useful resources in terms of tracking down problems with the 1541. One of the first things that I found which was quite handy was this old newsgroup post. What was his name? Yeah, Raymond Carlson, this guy here. He's actually posted a few, there's a few articles like this that I've found from him detailing some diagnosis steps for Commodore devices, so pretty smart guy from the sounds of things. I did read through this entire document. It goes through common faults that you might find on a 1541 drive, what the behavior may be when different chips may fail, and different components. So that was very useful. And what I found that was basically lining up with the behavior that I've been seeing is here. So there's two symptoms here. One is drive powers up normally, but motors run slowly or not at all. Drive appears to power up normally, but motors do not run. So this seems to line up with what I'm seeing, and the two things that it talks about are the voltage regulator for the 12 volt line, which drives the motor, and also the bridge rectifier for the 12 volt. So a bridge rectifier is a component that converts alternating current to direct current. So typically voltage will come in from the mains through a transformer, transforming it down to a lower voltage. That then runs through a bridge rectifier to turn it into direct current, and then in this case it runs through a voltage regulator, which sets that to a specific voltage. In this case, there's a rectifier for 12 volt, and then a regulator for 12 volt, and then the same for 5 volt. So this seemed like the most logical place to start looking. They're listed here as CR1 for the bridge rectifier, and VR1 for the 12 volt regulator. So I've got this plugged in again, and we're just going to have a look at what happens when we turn it on with it all opened up. What should happen at minimum is we should hear some sort of action from the motor. The stepper motor should kick in. I think it tries to seek back to the start, but if we're not hearing that, then there's definitely something wrong with the drive. So it's now switched on. Now, I was feeling quite a lot of warmth off this part of the board. Okay. Feeling some warmth coming off here. Yeah, definitely feeling warmth. Okay, so that's cold right now. That's getting quite hot to touch. CR3 over here is still fine. That is getting uncomfortably hot to touch. So CR1, quite hot. And then this regulator is getting quite hot. As is this one. I mean, it's getting a bit warmer. But that one there, CR1, and this one here, which I can't quite tell which regulator this is. I assume it's the one in line with this bridge rectifier, are getting very hot very quickly, but I'm not sort of hearing any motion. So some more reading online led me to people suggesting replacing the bridge rectifier, as it can be a common point of failure. So I went ahead and bought a replacement part and decided to have a go at replacing it. Alright, so we're going to replace this guy. This bridge rectifier, bit of corrosion on the pins, and it's getting very hot. A lot of reading says these can fail and become a problem, particularly if they're getting very hot. That can be an indication that they've failed. So I'm going to remove this, replace it with a newer rectifier. So yeah, we'll take this off. I'll desolder it. Just desolder these 4 pins here, pull it out, and we will see if that actually makes any difference when we replace it. I'm not 100% confident that's going to be the only problem, but it seems like a decent starting point. I add some flux to help the solder stop oxidizing and flow a bit more easily. Just makes it easier to apply and also remove. I'm adding some fresh solder to the joints here to hopefully make it a bit easier to wick off the old stuff. Next, I'm going to use some solder wick to remove the old solder from the board so that I can actually remove the rectifier without having to cut it off. And also free up the vias there so that I can install the new rectifier. I've sped this bit up. It takes me a little while here. I'm still having a bit of trouble with using the solder wick. I'm getting better at it. I've actually gotten quite a bit better since filming this, so hopefully in later videos this part is a bit smoother. Have a bit of an inspection first. Yeah, so these 2 pins are almost off. I can see that's still on just a smidge. There's quite a bit of solder in that one, and then this one as well. Let's just give these pins a slight wiggle. Okay, it's just that one pin now. Let's get a bit of heat onto it. It should just come out. There we go. So I'm not sure if that's corrosion or just dirt, or it might even be insulation actually. It's hard to tell. Anyway. Okay, so we have here a replacement rectifier. This is the KBP 206G. The old part was just a KBP02. Now, the difference between these two components is that this one is rated for 2 amps. This one is rated for 1.5 amps. But the fuse on this thing is a 1/2 amp fuse. So if there was 2 amps coming into this, the fuse would blow anyway. So this should be fine. Fingers crossed. Pins are not quite the same, but let's bend them in. Let's check on the front. Yep, that looks okay. Now this one had these little guards on it. I'm not entirely sure what those were for. I'm not going to put them back on to some sort of insulative thing, I think. I'll just bend these pins out so it stays in nicely. Let's get a bit more flux on the board. Some fresh flux. Yeah, let's go. Again, I'm an amateur solderer, so probably not going to do a great job at this, but it should be good enough. Try to heat the pad and the pin, and then applying solder so that the heat from the pad and the pin melts the solder, not the soldering iron. That's the idea anyway. It's not quite full up, is it? There we go. That's okay, I think. Whew, face full of flux. Okay, let's inspect our work. Doesn't look terrible. I mean, might want to add a bit more solder in there, but I think that'll work. Let's check it from the other side quickly. Yeah, the joins go through. I think this will be fine. Now, I'm just going to clean this flux residue off, just, you know, keep things clean. And also trim these leads off. So I'll do that first. Okay. Start with just a cotton bud just to soak up some of the excess here. And get some isopropyl. Move that before it shorts something. Try to absorb some of this excess alcohol. But it will evaporate pretty quickly. Okay, let that dry off for a minute or so, and then we'll get this attached and we'll see if it runs. So it turns out that replacing the bridge rectifier really didn't change any of the behavior. I was still seeing it overheating, indicating that maybe there's a short somewhere else on the board. I'm going to leave that investigation for part 2, some of which I've actually already filmed, because yeah, this video is just getting a little bit long. So watch out for the sequel sometime in the near future. Thanks for watching.